Okay, folks, so we're moving on to the risotto, which I'm serving with the roast chicken. It's the roast chicken and pan sauce. That's an embellishment. You could certainly have mushroom risotto as an appetizer, or as a main course, but I embellished it just because I wanted to, and I have served it at numerous dinners, and it is possible to make it all in one day. I, however, for the purposes of these videos, have made it in 2 days. I've served as many as 16 people wild mushroom risotto, porcini risotto with lovely succulent roast chicken and pan sauce on numerous occasions. It takes a lot of work, and you don't really want to do it for more than 12 people because you'll need a lot of help. But for the videos, what I did is I took the pan sauce, separated and filtered and put in the refrigerator, and the parts of the bird, the chicken, without slicing it. I know I showed a video of me slicing 3 pieces. Well, I ate them and they were delicious and so fragrant. But if you're saving the chicken, like if you do it earlier in the day and you're saving it, or if you're doing it, making the roast chicken the day before, you would not want to be slicing it because you want to preserve the moisture within that you've worked so hard to garner in the roast chicken. Anyway, the other thing that I probably should have mentioned is earlier, you want to make your porcini stock in advance. It takes an hour. And of course, this makes the risotto itself vegetarian. I don't know if you can see, but this is what porcinis look, dry porcinis look like. They've been simmering for an hour in 14 cups of water. This is what they look like. Sometimes when you see them, you could also use mixed mushrooms, but unlike most stocks for risotto, I made a porcini stock, so it's all porcinis. And one could also chop these up and put them in the final product, the final result, because they're quite smooth, but are quite tender at this point. I only need 6 or 7 cups of stock for this risotto, which takes 2 cups of arborio rice. I'm not sure if you can see how dark it is, but the fact is it's not about darkness completely. It's about the flavor of the porcinis, and my porcinis some of my porcinis are domestic. So 14 ounces of water with 1 ounce of porcini is all you need. Not 14 ounces, sorry, 14 cups. And then you cook it down for an hour. I'm hoping I have 7 cups in there. I don't know, it looks like it's halved. But the fact is, my porcinis are domestic and North American. By domestic I mean North American, and that means that they just don't have the intensity of flavor even when dried. So I did 2.5 ounces. That was 2 portions here. This is 0.5 ounces, and another bag of the local ones. In my case, these come from Quebec, I think. But they don't have enough flavor for what we're doing here. And of course, restaurants and many recipes online call this wild mushroom risotto. But the fact is, unless you're out gathering your own mushrooms, these are all cultivated. These are oyster mushrooms, and these are shiitakes, organic but cultivated. And what I'm going to do now in advance, everything really needs to be timed to the actual finish of the risotto. So that's why you need the chicken done just prior. You could start the risotto if you had your stock already made while the chicken is resting before you even cut it. All of this can be done because this all should only take around 23 minutes, and I know around 23 sounds silly, but the thing is that the chicken needs to rest for that amount of time, and I trust me, you can do it all at once, but I mean, in sequence, but you need to time everything. So you would want to make the stock in advance. Like I said, it could have been a vegetarian stock for, say, a pea risotto, or a chicken stock for almost every other kind of risotto, including this one. You could use chicken stock instead of water, but I've so many porcinis here that I wanted to use up. I'm taking the stems off the shiitakes because they will never soften. They will only get harder. And I'm just going to chop up roughly the shiitakes and these are I don't know if I mentioned it, the oyster mushrooms. They don't need to be chopped finely. You actually want to know that you're eating mushroom, and I'm going to use them both on top of the risotto and then as garnish on top of the chicken. The other thing I have going here is that pan, a regular saute pan. I'm going to put it on medium high, and I'm going to cook these with no butter or oil. It's going to be a dry pan because I would really like them to retain their shape and not become mushy, and because I just want them to get a little of that caramelization. They're, just like these are not exactly wild, the term caramelization is not accurate either, because caramelization requires sugar. There's another term for that, and it's the term we use for meat, and it's a chemical process that causes the browning. There's no caramel action in either of these, meat or mushrooms. So that doesn't look like it's a lot, and when it cooks down, it's not going to be a lot. I have some button mushrooms I could add, but right now I want to pay attention to this because there's no butter or oil. We don't want to ruin them. They're quite beautiful and we don't want to waste them. Also, this spider I have, which is the sort of North American version of a spider, I'm just going to take them out and put them on a plate and cut them up and put them in later. Hold on. Because they're full of flavor. And I'm also keeping this warm at a low temperature because you need your stock and your risotto to be, you need the stock to be the not to cool down the cooking. And there we go with that. That's quite a lot. I don't think I need button mushrooms right now. I think we're quite good. Because when I chop those up, they'll become, part of the meal. And these will be the garnish. But I do want my wooden spoon. And I'll see you back here in 3 minutes. So I'm sauteing the oyster mushrooms. They're getting smaller and smaller. And the shiitakes. I forgot to mention that part of the porcini stock involved a 12 to 1 tablespoon of whole peppercorns, but nothing else. Unlike chicken or vegetable stock, I didn't need bay leaves or carrots or onions or celery and all that. It's just pure mushroom with some beautiful peppercorns. I just want to season these mushrooms with a pinch, just a pinch of salt. That will draw out. Okay, that was about 3 grains, so I'll do another one. Okay, so that will draw out the moisture by osmosis. But remember, we want these to be nicely browned, but also evident to the touch that we're eating mushrooms. So I'll do another pinch of pepper here at this point, because these are getting there. And then we'll move on to the actual cooking of the rice. Okay, I'm back. The dry pan method for the mushrooms produced nice browned oyster and shiitakes, and that are still meaty and smell really good because they've been seasoned with a touch of pepper and touch of salt. Those will be more like a topping than a garnish. And it's important now to start your risotto, and the timing is important. This should take between 23 and 25 minutes. The pan needs to be warm. The heat is on medium. It wasn't on medium. That's about 2 tablespoons of butter. Sorry for the hands, they're clean. And when this melts, we're going to saute 1.5 cups of shallots. I'm using 1.5 cups of shallots because I actually don't have a big onion. Plus, I really like the subtle flavor that is slightly garlicky. It's part of the garlic family, but you need more. If you had a nice white onion or a yellow onion, I guess yellow would be the most flavorful for this. You'd only need 1 medium one, which is about 1 cup. But because I'm using shallots left over from Thanksgiving dinner, I need 1.5 cups. This is going to melt, and then we will soon start toasting our arborio rice. You can use caroloni rice. I have some in the pantry, but I've never done it that way. It's just another short grain rice, which is quite starchy, Italian rice. Arborio is slightly plumper and more starchy. So I'm using the classic, and I only need 2 cups. And the thing is, I have this high-sided saute pan, which I use for paellas and shrimp dishes with rice or whatever. It doesn't matter if you have flat sides. It's just that it will plump up quite a lot, and there will be quite quite a bit when you add 7 cups of delicious stock, and everything plumps up nicely. So here goes sorry for the ellipse there. It wasn't. I just don't want the butter to burn, so this is going in. And like I said, the shallots are fine. Oh, I didn't say, but they are finely chopped, and you don't actually need to cook them very long. You just want them to be translucent and giving off a fragrance and flavor into the butter. You don't want to burn the butter, and it's another reason you don't really use garlic in this, but shallots have a slightly garlicky flavor. I think my stovetop the metrics of my stovetop are not exactly medium, so I do slightly over medium. Saute. I open the window. I turn on the fan, but it would make a lot of noise. They're just starting to sizzle. It's kind of what I want. At which point, because I don't know, has that been a minute or 2? If it were an onion, I would do it for 3. But I don't. When I'm baking, I do time things exactly, and when I'm roasting, but when you're cooking on the stovetop, you just have a sense. I can tell what's going on. It smells amazing, almost crying. Okay, so here's the arboreal rice. You can see how plump. I don't know if you can see that. Plump, and that plumpness of a short grain rice is actually. Oh, now I want to turn the it's an electric oven. You don't have a lot of control. Now I want to turn it down. So you need to roast the grains with the onions or shallots so that they're toasted and getting ready for the liquids and the liquid flavorings that are coming. And like I said, this is something you can't leave. This is something you must. Oh, I can hear them crackling. Can you? I'm not sure you can. That's a good sign. This is not a dish you can leave on the stove to wash your hands or do other things. You gotta do everything in advance, get it all prepared, because this is one of those Italian dishes that takes constant attention. Ooh, I'm liking the sound. That just means I'm getting. And by roasted, I don't mean color. You don't need to add color to the rice. You just need to get the outer coating of the rice receptive to the liquids, which are flavorings that you'll be adding. Okay, so now I'll add, that's a 1/4 cup of wine. I'll add another 1/4 cup of wine. And this needs to cook off for about 3 or 4 minutes. By cooking off, you'll see, because there won't be any left on the bottom. I turned down the heat again because I'm using an electric stove and not a gas one, and it's not very responsive, so it was slow to get to temp, and it was slow to go back to temp. But that smells pretty good. If anyone's ever done a beurre blanc or any kind of shrimp scampi, you'll know that white wine and butter are favorites, really good friends. I might actually throw a little more wine in. because it really wants a half a cup when you have 2 cups of rice. Anyway, you can see that there's nothing left, so there's no liquid left on the bottom. I must be clear. Oops, there goes some rice bits over. And this is when we begin to, let me remove some items here. This is when we begin to ladle the stock. This is porcini stock. This is a small ladle, so I don't mind doing 2. But the fact is that you normally, well, that's just the right amount as far as I'm concerned, but this needs to cook slowly. It'll take about 20 minutes from this point on until I've turned the temperature down a little bit, till the rice absorbs everything, and you'll know because the pan will not be, there will be no liquid when you do that. So that's how you know. And we'll be doing this probably, well, like I said, for the next 20 minutes. I will sign off now because I'm sure you don't need to see me do this for 20 minutes. You know, you can actually, can you hear that? You can actually, sorry, that's my timer. I have 5 minutes going on. You can actually tell when you need to add, by the sound. You need to add stock by the sound because it starts to fry up. And you get that frying sound. And that happened around 10 seconds ago, just before I turned the camera on. We're getting really close. I tried some. I think this might be the last, hold on here. It might be the last scoop of stock. I'm not measuring in cups because I'm not putting it in by the cup. I'm just going by the time, which is 20 to 30 minutes, but I'd say 23 minutes. Adding a little, and my stock, you know, I can measure how much that is. I'm gonna guess that's not even half a cup, but whatever. I put two in, and you can see that, or you can hear that the sound ceased. It's on medium low. I turned it to medium low much earlier when I realized it was getting too hot. You want a slow simmer. There's no words. There's no yelling at me. There's not saying, liquid, liquid, bring me liquid. But the thing is, I already tried it and it's slightly al dente. So I'm going to try it again. No, not al dente enough. It's not exactly the time to add salt, to add pepper, but I'm going to add some salt. You know, that's not even an eighth of a teaspoon. I bring you back into the video land because I'm running out of stock. Well, not really. I have another cup and a half in there. But I know that the whole point here is to get creamy rice that is cooked. Oh, I heard that noise it made. I brought it to the side of my stovetop. But there's liquid, and let's look. There's a little liquid. You don't want to rush it or else you'll have uncooked rice and a lot of it. If you've noticed, 2 things. One is the kernels of the tiny little arboreal rice are at least doubled. The color is very caramelly looking, but that's entirely due to the due to the stock, which is dark to begin with. If you're doing nice pea risotto, this might be my last half scoop. We'll see. Don't rush it. I'm kind of rushing it for the video. I might have to turn this off, but I wanted to show you how to finish it. And at the same time, I wanted to show you how the bulk of the volume has increased in bulk, and how the kernels are still separate, and yet there's a creaminess. I think all those sauces and people have been buying since the 60s, from Knorr, and canned and pre-made, are really just versions of an Uncle Ben's or whatever, just versions of traditional Italian cooking, which in this case takes a little care. I'm going to pause the video now until I get, I have at least a cup and a half of delicious, lovely smelling porcini stock. But there's no point in keeping you until I get to the end where I add the final touches. Okay, wow, so that didn't take long. It was around 30 seconds since I shut off the camera, and I put in a tiny half ladle in, and the timer went off showing me that it was 20 minutes, but that wasn't crucial because I started the cooking 3 or 4 minutes with the arborio in, with the shallots and the butter and the wine 4 minutes before. And I tasted this with my spoon, my clean spoon, and you can see this is really perfect. And I ate it, I took a bite, and it's al dente, and that's what you want. So here's where you start adding things. I'm going to add back half the porcinis, only half because I put 2.5 times more in the broth, in the stock, than you would normally do. I'm going to just put them in because you don't want them to be everything. Beautiful caramel color. Has nothing to do with caramelization. It's just what most porcinis look like. Then we're going to do another tablespoon of butter. We're going to add an entire cup of actual Parmigiano Reggiano, if I can open it. The thing is, I already grated some, and this is off the heap, just so you know. You don't want everything to be mushy. I'm throwing in, I grated this myself. The reason, there's a whole story behind, grated cheese that you buy in the store. And without going into detail, any of it that you buy that's not in the refrigerated section is full of cellulose. That's what stabilizes. That's basically what paper is made out of, and it's a wood byproduct. There's no risotto without Parmesan. And at this point, I can add more stock because it's looking a little thick, but it's not to cook it. It's just to thin it. And I also need to season it. And I don't know how it looks on camera, but it smells amazing. I didn't really add any seasoning since the saute of the shallots. So this is the time for that. And here's some pepper. I love pepper, freshly ground. And we're just going to keep stirring this till the butter and the cheese is all melted. And then we'll assemble the plate. Oop, turn off the stove top or you'll end up hurting yourself. Okay, that is looking and smelling delicious. Something you might want to do is add parsley at this point, but I have other ideas for the next stage. Thank you. So we're ready to plate. I like to use a nice pasta bowl. These are handmade by Fable in Vancouver. They're some of my favorites. I need the good spoon. Hold on. We're going to do a nice, it's really hot and it's perfect. That's enough for one person. I think like 6 or 8 people could eat this if you're including the chicken. And as I said before, it's essential that you serve it immediately. The rest you can do, what you want. I want to throw on a little bit of the dry pan cooked shiitakes and what are they called? Oyster. And then we're gonna do a nice array of, oops, that wants to fall over. Let's do this has just been heated up a bit, but it's actually quite hot. But it's still extremely moist. There's her chicken topping. Then we're gonna do the pan sauce. You don't need very much. You literally only need a couple of tablespoons because you have moisture, you have flavor. So, this isn't, we're not trying to put everyone to sleep with tryptophan or whatever it's called. That smells so good. I could make a soup out of that. Okay, so that's it. And then that's not it. Then another helping of the beautiful mushrooms. I guess we call that toasted or stovetop roasted mushrooms. And there you have it. My version of mushroom risotto, porcini risotto, mixed mushrooms, and roasted chicken. Bon appetit!